Once upon a time, in a vast village, there lived a young girl named Ujuna. She was very polite and kind, raised by her grandmother, whom she called N. They lived together in a small hut on the edge of the village. Ujuna and N were very poor, relying on the little they could grow in their small garden. They also had few trades that N could make. Their poverty was not only due to their circumstances. The villagers avoided them. No one wanted to be their friend or trade with them, except secretly. This was because Ujuna was born out of wedlock, and her parents were not married when she was born. Ujuna's mother, a beautiful and naive girl, fell in love at a very young age. She met a man who promised her the world, spoke sweet words, and made grand promises, making her believe in a bright future together. But this man was deceitful. He hid the fact that he was already married with children. When Ujuna's mother discovered she was pregnant, she approached him, hoping to discuss their future. Instead, she was met with cold rejection. "I cannot be with you," the man said, his voice devoid of warmth. "I have a family." Ujuna's mother's heart shattered. "But you never told me you had a wife," she cried, her eyes filled with tears. The man shrugged, uncaring of her pain. "It doesn't matter now, I cannot be seen with you. You must understand." With that, he left, leaving Ujuna's mother to bear the brunt of the village's judgment alone. The villagers were unforgiving. Ujuna's mother was branded a homewrecker, a stigma that extended to her family. Her mother, N, bore the whispers and pointed fingers with a strong face, but inside she was deeply hurt. Ujuna's mother, still a teenager herself, was unable to handle the constant ridicule and scorn. Women at the stream would whisper and snicker as she approached. "Here comes the husband snatcher. Hide your men," they would say. Ashamed and humiliated, she often left without fetching water. To protect her daughter from this cruelty, N sent her to live with relatives in a faraway village. This was a hard decision, but it gave Ujuna's mother a chance for a new start, leaving behind her baby daughter. Ujuna grew up with the love and care of her grandmother. She was taught to be respectful and kind, even though the villagers were mean to her. The shame that once belonged to Ujuna's mother was now on Ujuna. Children her age played together but did not include her. When she tried to join them, they reminded her of her mother's disgrace. "You are just like your mother," they would say. "Our mothers told us not to play with you." These words hurt Ujuna deeply. She would often come home in tears, feeling very lonely. N would comfort her, holding her close. "Do not listen to them, my child," N would say. "You are a good girl. You have done nothing wrong. The village will see your goodness one day." Despite these kind words, Ujuna felt like an outsider. She watched from a distance as the other children played, wishing she could join them, but she was too afraid of being rejected again. Ujuna grew up to be a very beautiful young lady, just like her mother, but she didn't see it. She felt insecure about her whole being and felt everyone hated her, making her doubt herself. She preferred to be alone, avoiding people as much as possible. She would go to fetch firewood or water by herself, not wanting to face anyone's mocking remarks. When it was time to fetch water, Ujuna had a routine. She would hide in the bushes near the river, watching and waiting for everyone to leave. She was too afraid to fetch water while others were around. Only when the riverbank was empty would she quickly go and fill her pot. Sometimes she had to wait so long that it became dark by the time she finished. She would then walk home in the dark, tired and scared, but relieved that she didn't have to face anyone. One evening, Ujuna hid in the bushes longer than usual because villagers kept coming to the river. She grew more anxious as the sky turned dark. When she finally hurried to the river, it was pitch black. She filled her pot quickly, her heart pounding with fear at every sound in the night. As she walked back home late at night, her footsteps echoed in the quiet village. She saw N standing outside their hut, her face full of worry. "Where have you been?" N asked. her voice shaking with concern. "It's dangerous to fetch water this late." Ujuna looked down, unable to meet her grandmother's eyes. "I'm sorry, N," she whispered. "I'll be more careful." N sighed and hugged her tightly. "I worry about you, my child. Please don't fetch water so late again." Ujuna nodded, but deep down she knew she would still fetch water late. She couldn't bring herself to tell N the truth, that she was too scared to fetch water during the day because she feared being bullied. She didn't want to add to her grandmother's worries. Every day the same pattern continued. Ujuna hid in the bushes, hoping the villagers would leave soon. She felt like a shadow, always hiding, always afraid. Her heart ached with loneliness, but she felt she had no other choice. Ujuna was now 16 years old and continued her routine. One day, she hurried to the river to fill her pot. She thought she was alone, but a group of girls her age were hiding and watching her. They had seen her rush to the river and decided to play a cruel trick. They put down their water pots and head rings on the grass next to the river and began approaching Ujuna. One girl stepped forward and sneered, "Do you know that your father is married to my aunt?" She moved closer to Ujuna, who was now standing with her pot in her hands. "Your mother tried to ruin my aunt's family," she continued. The other girls joined in, closing in on Ujuna. Fear gripped her as she slowly backed away, not realizing she was stepping deeper into the water. The girls kept moving towards her, and Ujuna, overwhelmed with fear, didn't notice the water rising around her. They laughed as she struggled to keep her balance. Suddenly, Ujuna lost her footing and fell into the deeper part of the river. She panicked, splashing and trying to stay afloat. The girls, realizing the danger, abandoned their water pots and ran away, swearing to each other to never speak of what happened. Ujuna felt a strong grip on her leg, pulling her under the water. She couldn't scream as she was dragged down. She struggled, but soon everything went dark. When Ujuna woke up, she found herself in a strange underwater cave. Her hands were tied, and the cave was filled with a soft blue light. It was as if she was in another world. She sat there, shocked and scared, trying to understand what was happening. An old woman with one leg approached her, smiling strangely. "Oh, how I have waited for this moment for a whole decade," the woman said, her voice echoing in the cave. "Under this full moon, I will finally make the entire village pay for their sins." She rummaged through a sack made of old cloths, muttering to herself, "Children will pay for the sins of their parents." Ujuna cried out, "Please let me go. I am innocent." But the old woman ignored her. "Please," Ujuna pleaded. The old woman took out a sharp stick and pricked Ujuna's hand to get some of her blood. Then she left, leaving Ujuna alone in the eerie cave. After a while, the old woman returned. "Who are you? You are not of this village. Your blood is useless to me," she said, frowning. "My name is Ujuna. Please don't harm me. I can help you with whatever you need. Just spare me," Ujuna begged, her voice trembling. The old woman looked at her thoughtfully. "You are of no use to me. I will give you to the crocodiles." "Wait. Please tell me what you need. I can help you," Ujuna pleaded. The old woman paused. "I need something very important from any girl who has never been with a man. Blood, hair, saliva, anything. I can get that for you, I promise. As much as you need. Just let me go back to the river," Ujuna said. The old woman eyed her suspiciously. "You think I'm a fool. You will run away. No, you can come with me. I will get you as much hair as you need. You can watch me. If I try to run, do whatever you want with me," Ujuna promised. Seeing the desperation in Ujuna's eyes, the old woman agreed. She pulled Ujuna up and swam back to the river with her. It was late at night, and the full moon shone brightly. The old woman waited in the water as Ujuna walked to the riverbank. She gathered the head rings the girls had left behind, each made of old cloth, and returned to the old woman. The old woman took the head rings, placed them in her pocket, and swam back to the cave with Ujuna. When they reached the cave, Ujuna carefully searched each head ring for strands of hair and handed them to the old woman. The old woman smiled, pleased. No one has ever helped me like this. For years I only found wet items, but today I finally get my revenge. What do you plan to do with this, Mama? Ujuna asked. Don't worry, child. You will know in good time. Because of your help, you will be free from all of this, and I will give you your freedom back, the old woman said. She told Ujuna not to speak a word of what had happened, and with that, she let her go. Ujuna walked back to the riverbank, fetched her pot, filled it with water, and went home. When she arrived, N was crying, having stayed up all night waiting for her. Where have you been, Ujuna? I went to every house looking for you. Some people turned me away, ridiculing me. I even asked your friends, but they denied knowing where you were, N said. Ujuna lied. I waited at the river to fetch water and fell asleep. I only woke up in the morning. N could see something was not right but said nothing more. She hugged Ujuna tightly, relieved that she was safe, but worried about the secrets her granddaughter seemed to be hiding. Ujuna grew up isolated, carrying the weight of her family's shame on her shoulders. But when she turned 18, a new wealthy family moved into the village. This family did not know anything about Ujuna's family stigma. Even when the villagers warned them, they chose to see Ujuna and her grandmother as good people. This new family had 6 children, 3 boys and 3 girls. Among them was a girl named A, who was the same age as Ujuna. A and her family treated Ujuna and N with kindness and respect. They ignored the gossip and focused on the good hearts of the 2 women. A quickly became close friends with Ujuna. For the first time in her life, Ujuna had someone to laugh with, to share her dreams with, and to enjoy simple pleasures. A often gave Ujuna gifts, making her feel valued and cared for. With A by her side, Ujuna started to gain a bit of self-confidence. She began going to the river in the afternoon, no longer feeling the need to hide. She even bathed at the river, knowing that people respected A and would not mock her when A was around. Among the boys in A's family was Isa. He was fascinated by Ujuna and cared for her deeply. Though many young men admired Ujuna's beauty, they were discouraged by their parents from pursuing her because of her family's reputation. But Isa saw beyond the stigma. He admired her strength and kindness. As Ujuna reached the age where many of her peers were getting married, she found it difficult to find a suitor. Despite her beauty, no young man was willing to go against their parents' wishes. They were afraid of the disgrace associated with marrying into her family. Ujuna watched as the maidens she grew up with started new lives with their husbands while she remained alone. A's presence in her life brought a brief period of happiness and confidence. Ujuna felt a sense of belonging she had never known before. But after 2 years, A got married and returned to her own village, leaving Ujuna alone once again. The villagers began to call her a spinster, a cruel label for someone so young. Ujuna was only 21, but in those days, maidens were expected to marry early. In the midst of this loneliness and misery, Isa began to approach Ujuna. He offered to accompany her to the river and help her fetch firewood whenever he had free time. Slowly, a friendship blossomed between them. Ujuna began to feel safe and free around Isa. His kindness and care made her believe in herself once more. Their friendship grew deeper, and love quietly blossomed. Isa saw the beauty and strength in Ujuna that no one else saw. He knew she was the only one he wanted to spend his life with. One day, he gathered his courage and went to N to ask for Ujuna's hand in marriage. N was overjoyed. She saw the genuine love and respect Isa had for Ujuna. Ujuna too was filled with happiness. She had found a man who loved her for who she was, not caring about the past. They accepted Isa's proposal, and Ujuna was finally married to the man she loved. Their wedding was simple but filled with joy. Ujuna moved to her new home with Isa, leaving behind the years of isolation and ridicule. She started a new chapter of her life, one filled with love and acceptance. Isa's family loved and respected Ujuna very much as their daughter-in-law. She found warmth and acceptance in their home. After a year of their marriage, Ujuna gave birth to a baby boy. The family was overjoyed, and the arrival of the baby brought immense happiness to their lives. A year later, Ujuna became pregnant again, bringing even more joy to her family. However, around this time, the kingdom began to face a strange problem. Many young men noticed that their wives were not having children. Concerned, they went to their king to voice their worries. When they arrived, they discovered that even the king's many wives had not given him any children. The king was deeply troubled and didn't understand what was happening in his kingdom. The king assured his people that he would investigate the matter. He sent his men to research the entire village. They discovered that the last child born before Ujuna's son was 5 years ago. Ujuna's pregnancy was the only one in years. The king's men reported their findings, and the king called another meeting to share the news with his villagers. The villagers were shocked and confused. Why was Ujuna the only woman able to have children? The news caused anger and frustration among the people. They demanded that the king summon Ujuna so they could see for themselves. The king agreed, and Ujuna was brought before the crowd. Visibly pregnant, Ujuna stood before the villagers who stared in amazement. "If Ujuna is pregnant, maybe there is still hope for us," one man said. But no one understood why she was the only one who could conceive. This confusion and lack of understanding led to chaos in the village. The situation grew worse. Young married women desperate for children began flirting with Isa, begging to lie with him in hopes of becoming pregnant. Many men, driven by jealousy and frustration, started desiring Ujuna, believing that she held the secret to fertility. Ujuna and Isa found themselves in a difficult and dangerous situation. The villagers now looked at them with suspicion and envy. Every day, the pressure grew. Ujuna felt the weight of the villagers' expectations and desires pressing down on her. Even the parents who had once refused to let their sons marry Ujuna now began to beg her for help. "I cannot live without seeing even one grandchild, Ujuna. Please, you are the only one who can help my family," one parent pleaded. Another family would say, "Please just see our son once. We are desperate." Year after year passed, and Ujuna and Isa stood firm in their refusal to give in to these requests. However, the pressure continued to mount. The situation reached a breaking point when the king himself summoned Isa to his palace. The king, once proud and authoritative, now kneeled before Isa, desperation etched on his face. "Isa, I beg you," he pleaded. "Allow Ujuna to spend just one night with me. I will lose my kingship if I don't produce an heir soon. I have even run out of women to marry. Please, I will give you all the gold and silver you desire." But Isa, deeply in love with his wife, refused. "No amount of gold will make me give up my wife," he said firmly and left the king. The king, however, would not be denied. He sent his men to Isa's house to capture Ujuna. They overpowered everyone and took her away. At that time, Ujuna was pregnant with her third child. The king, seeing her condition, decided to give her some privacy, but his desire to make her his queen was undiminished. When the king saw Ujuna, he was captivated by her beauty and grace. He announced to the entire village that Ujuna would be crowned queen. The villagers gathered in awe and confused as Ujuna, visibly distressed, was crowned. Immediately after the crowning ceremony, a man insisted that he had an important message for everyone. Given the podium, he began to speak passionately. "Repent, everyone. I have received a message while praying. I saw a vision of our villagers throwing a pregnant woman into the river, accusing her of being an adulterer. She lost her child, and a crocodile bit off her leg. Her anger and sorrow are the reasons we cannot conceive. Her curse is upon us." The crowd murmured in confusion and disbelief. One villager stood up and shouted, "You are a liar. Why did Ujuna give birth then? I mean our queen. Isn't she from our village? Why didn't the curse touch her?" The man replied calmly, "The queen is not originally from this village, and neither is her husband, Isa. The curse did not affect them because they are not of the bloodline involved in the sin." The king, now agitated, interrupted, "She is my wife now and your queen." Ignoring the king's outburst, the man continued, "As long as you are from this village, there is no escaping this curse." The old woman, after fulfilling her revenge, passed on. "We must seek forgiveness for our parents' sins." The woman's spirit is underwater, still angry over losing her child because of the villagers' cruelty. Some villagers laughed at him hysterically, mocking his words, but others began to think deeply about what he said. The man finished, "What you do next is up to you," and he left the crowd. The village was in turmoil. Some believed the man's words, while others dismissed him as a madman. Ujuna, now the queen, was trapped in a web of confusion and fear. She did not want to be with the king, but her family's safety depended on her compliance. Isa, heartbroken and powerless, struggled to find a way to rescue his beloved wife. In the days that followed, the village elders and kingmakers gathered to discuss the pressing situation. After much debate, the conversation grew heated. "We know our king doesn't believe in God. If he doesn't repent, he will never have a child of his own blood," one elder stated firmly. Another elder countered, "But can you just believe the words you hear from a stranger?" Yet another elder supported the stranger's message. "Those words make sense. It's been 8 years now, and what the man said aligns with our situation. If you think about it, it makes absolute sense." After much discussion, they all agreed that since the king could not produce an heir, it was better to crown Isa as the new king. This way his children and future generations would marry outside and produce heirs, ensuring the village's survival. They saw this as the right course of action. The decision was made, and it was announced that a new king would be crowned. Every villager was to be present on the appointed day. When the day arrived, the current king, knowing the traditions, was dethroned. Unaware of the events unfolding, Isa was ordered to wash and dress by the elders. He was utterly surprised when he was led to the throne and crowned king. The entire village was in awe. Those who had mocked and bullied Ujuna and her family were left speechless. The older villagers knew they had to respect the new king and queen for the sake of the kingdom. Isa, still in shock after the crowning, sat with the elders and declared, "I will only have one queen, only Ujuna." The elders reassured him, the former king's wives have already left with him. The following week, Ujuna gave birth to her third child. She was overjoyed to be saved from the king and to have her family back. She brought N and her mother to the palace to live with them. As Ujuna walked through the village, everyone would kneel, even the women who had bullied her all her life. Many wished they could at least be her stylist or hold her shoes as she walked. "I wish I had treated her differently. I would be the queen's friend by now, or at least babysit her children," one woman said as they walked to the river. The village was never the same. Most families were in agony of wanting children, while others learned to accept the situation. Ujuna and Asa became different kinds of leaders. They changed many traditional rules, including the harsh treatment of women impregnated by disloyal men. The rules they couldn't change, they left to God. Ujuna continued to give birth to more children, and she and Isa had a very big, happy family. Their reign was marked by fairness and kindness.